Hello everyone, and welcome to another video. The last 3 weeks I've been really consumed by a piece of literature which I stumbled upon at a used bookstore, and it has catapulted to the probably one of the top books that I read this year, if not the top, definitely top 3, could be top 1. It just wowed me in every sense of the word, so I thought I'd share it with you guys today. So stay tuned and let's get into the nitty-gritty of the book. Ahmet Hamdi Tanpinar, an author from Turkey, who wrote many great pieces of literature throughout his lifespan, and one of these works I happened to stumble upon is A Mind at Peace. The reason I stumbled upon this work is because it's also from my favorite publisher, Archipelago Books, and I discovered this book at a used bookstore sale and whatnot, and it was a hardcover. It was like $8, so I picked it up. And I wanted to read something summary. So the synopsis of the book, that it happens over one day in the summertime, and that it's Joshua Cohen. I don't really know who he is, but it was blurbed that he thought of this book as the Turkish Ulysses. I've never read Ulysses, so that didn't much help with me going into the book and understanding what that even meant, although I do want to one day read Ulysses by James Joyce. But Orhan Pamuk also blurbed this book, and he said it was the greatest novel ever written about Istanbul. And that instantly made me want to pick it up because of the season, because of my appreciation for Orhan Pamuk's books. So what should you expect when you're reading this work? It's a work that's, let me put this down. It's a work that takes place over a 24-hour period, where we have Mumtaz, a character, a protagonist who we will follow through the book. He's a 27-year-old man who finds himself under the care of his cousin Iksan, and we learn that the reason he's under his care is that Mumtaz has lost both his parents when they were fleeing Anatolia from Greece during the war crimes happening there at the time, and his father was mistaken for the supervisor of the building and shot accidentally. His mother, upon transporting him to Istanbul, lost her life in the journey. So he finds himself under the care of his cousin, and coming from a very dark and tumultuous past. At the beginning of the book, we are notified of two big facts that will play an important part in the story. The first fact is that his cousin Iksan, who he is extremely close with, and as we learn more about their relationship, we realize how important in the upbringing of Mumtaz this cousin plays a role with. But at this point, he is sick with an exacerbated case of pneumonia. So we have a cousin that needs to be taken care of. We also learn that on this present day that the story takes place is the day that Turkey is being stabilized and infiltrated to put up a fight in World War II. So it's the day before a big battle, presumably, which gives this novel a political dimension and the idea of where Turkey stands in relation to its allies, in relations to the world, and gives us a more in-depth idea of how the outside world influences the state of Turkey. His brother Ihsan, who's sick at the moment, is very intellectual, and these major themes of how one should live his life. Is it through love, or is it through the work and dedication towards his community? Lo and behold, you realize that both of these examples will be presented to us within the story as we backtrack through Istanbul, Nuran's past year, through the story, through the landscape, through the music, through all these different aspects of what it means to grow up in Istanbul, and most importantly, what it means to fall in love in Istanbul. This is, in essence, a love story at its center. It's a love story between a man who's coming to age and finding his own identity, as well as between a woman who finds herself on the outside of society as her husband has left her with a child, and she tries to navigate her world from a disadvantageous position. This love takes on something of a otherworld sense because it is built so beautifully. This is a story that comes to life through the connections that pull together Nuran, the woman, and Mumtaz, our central character. The major glue that holds them together is the historically authentic music of Turkey. From the beginning of the novel, as Mumtaz takes us through all the different parts of Istanbul, and he introduces us to the market where you have antiques being sold, as well as the modern market, which is like two different sections. And then as he takes us through the coffee shops and the Bosphorus inlet that separates the Black Sea and the Sea of Marmara, and how picturesque it is, and the mosques and all of this beauty within the city. It really transforms you almost to another time, to the past, to a world we will never get to inhabit, but nevertheless a world that's full of beauty. The world where light plays upon all the structures, the world where we meet people who, even though are just fading figures and figures that don't last long, still give us a better insight into the city, into the picturesque territory that this author tries to embark upon us. With this beauty and this longing that Mumtaz walks the street with, we are transported to the past year, where he speaks of an affair that he's had with this woman, Nuran. And when we meet her and when we are introduced to this love affair, it's almost as if the book, in the middle of it, takes a magnifying glass and zeroes in on these characters so much that the world outside of them disappears. The people in their lives disappear, and we are into this really interesting, into this really wonderful relationship where it's like an aged port that is very sweet and that we can't help but enjoy. And when we're at this point, we almost can't possibly see how love that is described so beautifully and has so much that holds it together, whether it's music, whether it's family, whether it's sexual relations, the act of making love, all these things. It's almost like these two people were, not almost, but you realize that they're meant for each other. And it doesn't seem like anything can rip them apart. The only thing that keeps them from getting married and beginning their lives together is the waiting period that a woman can get married after she gets divorced. And this period takes us to the fall, where we leave summer. And all of a sudden, within the fall, the magnifying glass sort of starts to take a step back, and we are introduced to other characters who can influence this relationship and other difficulties, and we're almost transported back into life, away from the summer heat, and we realize that there's way more to life than just two people who find this connection. Therefore, with the difficulties of life, things start to go astray. And I don't want to ruin this book and give you spoilers, because I think it's a relationship that is to be discovered for yourself. I don't think I gave any spoilers, because you realize from the start that if he's missing Nuran, who is already back with her original husband, you're cognizant of this fact from the beginning of the story. So it's not going to ruin it for you in any way, and you'll find yourself in the center of it, not believing that there could ever be anything that could rip them apart. That's how beautiful and how in depth this love is between these two characters. And it's just wonderful. To me, like, the best, to me, the Turkish author, whether it be Orhan Pamuk or this recent read that I read, they just have this ability to describe a love, the connection between characters on so many levels, with so many strings attached of different variety, that their love is almost more true than many other works I've read. And I would say that the connection between Mumtaz and Nuran in this book is by far maybe top 3 I've ever read of. I really fell in love with both characters, and to me, in the middle of the book, they were the world. They were the center of the story, which I never wanted to end. But the beauty of this book is that it's not only a love affair. It's so much more. There's war. There's politics being discussed. It's such a dense book that approaches many topics of the past and how it mixes with the future, of the responsibility of the person, of the identity of Turkey, and how the people there don't want it to fade away on their embarkment towards unifying with modernizing itself, such as their neighbors, which is Europe essentially has done, and the advantages they see in this modernization, as they weigh those advantages versus the disadvantage of losing the essence of being a Turkish citizen. The essence of their history, the essence of their purpose, the essence of their arts, the essence of their religion, all these different things are weighed And it gives you an appreciation of countries that we see constantly being encouraged to adopt democracy and to adopt all these different philosophies that the Western world wants to imprint upon them because our lifestyle is better, our civil rights are better, there's more freedom. But we don't realize how close the citizens of that world have held their beliefs, and that their beliefs may not align to all the things we want to put upon them, to all the rules we present to them to be followed in order for them to achieve this bliss that we think we live in America, or we live in Europe, or we live in these modernized countries. This book shows you just how difficult it is for a region to give up everything it stood away and to adapt this whole new philosophy of life. And what does it mean for a citizen to do that? What does it mean for a citizen to fight a war that's not even his war to be fought? It's beautiful. The book is just beautiful on a philosophical level, from like a humanized level, what your purpose in life should be. It's beautiful on a larger scale of what it means to modernize a country, and how a country should proceed in further developing itself, how much of the past should it give up, and how much of the modernization should it attain. It's also beautiful on the inside, on the level of the heart, and the love described here is amazing. It flows, it breathes, it sings. Like literally, this book is just on so many levels, exquisite. Ahmet Hamdi Tanpinar, with his canon of literature that he's put up through his prolific life, has been thought of as to have an influence on a author of our time who is Orhan Pamuk. They both come from the same region, and a lot of their writing styles are beautiful and resemble each other. I remember when I first read Orhan Pamuk, it was the Museum of Innocence. This was the first book of his that I read, and recent, 2-3 years ago. And I remember having picked this book up after finishing Proust in remembrance of time past, all his 7 books, or 6 books. I think one of them had 2 books in it. And I remember thinking that Orhan had tried to imitate, or had tried to get his art to the high esteem of Proust. But I often thought, reading it, it was pretentious. Again, it's very high standard to hold an author to when you're comparing him to Proust. However, I do think, in my opinion, that Ahmet Hamdi Tanpinar comes closer to that standard. His work is, to me, very resemblant, or more resemblant, of Proust, who came even before his time, in that it's almost as if Proust had a brother living in Turkey who wrote this book. It's got a lot of the same themes throughout it. The idea of beauty in nature, in objects, in music, the idea of people coming together in groups, in houses where parties are hosted, instead of, in Proust's work, where you have the combination of people through parties that gather the highest of kings, knights, and people of very high respectability. Here you have it more so within the family, the uncles, the brothers, the sisters, the cousins, everybody coming together in that atmosphere. But nevertheless, there are houses, and the story moves through them. Also within Proust, you have a young writer who, with his experience, wants to publish a book which is very similar to what's going on over here. Mumtaz having aspirations to become an author, and at the time of the story working on a novel himself. So to me it was very close to Proust and definitely resemblance of Orhan Pamuk within it. So who should read it? In my opinion, if you like Orhan Pamuk, if you like Proust, if you like works which are dense, complicated, and take some time to get through them. This isn't a quick work, but this is a work that will stay with you for a long time, a work you can always reflect on, and a work that will expand your scope and your viewpoint on how you view life just in general, as well as certain aspects of it. It'll make you appreciate music, it'll make you appreciate art, and if you ever wanted to know anything about the Turkish culture, you should definitely pick this book up, because I think it describes it extremely well, and it doesn't do it an injustice. Alright, I think I've rambled on enough about this book. So if you like the review, please comment. If you've read anything of his, comment as well. I ordered 2 more books from this author on Amazon shortly after finishing this work. And if you have any input, or if you're looking to discuss this book further, or want any more opinions, or have any questions, please do ask them. If you've found this video enjoyable, please subscribe down below, give me a like, and I hope to see you spend more time with me in my future videos. Thank you.